morning, everyone. Good morning. Ohayou gozaimasu. Thank you very much, Kubata-sensei, for the very kind introduction, for having me here. I'm very happy to be here this morning. This was one of the first temples I visited in America, and I remember my first visit to this temple, to this church. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I was very curious to see. I've been to temples in Japan, and we have our own community in Europe. But I came here and I was so warmly welcomed. I remember I see Kevin sitting in the background. I met Kevin that day, and Elaine Sensei took us upstairs to see the relics and told us all the stories about this temple and all the stories about the stupa, the pagoda upstairs. And I was very moved by that. So I'm very, very happy to be here today. I'm very grateful to have been invited, and it's very meaningful for me to come back here and to speak to you in a place that I have such fond memories of. But before we begin, let's please join me in Gassho. I, Shinran, have never yet set the Nembutsu, even once, for the repose of my departed father and mother. Shinran wa gogo no kyoyu no tame tote, ippen nitte mo Nembutsu moshitaru kotto imada sorowas. Namo Amidas. Namo Amidas. Namo Amidas. So, I want to tell you about a lot of things. Probably you don't have time, and that's fine. I just wanted to start with that quote, which I'm sure some of you will recognize. Is from Tanisho. It's from the chapter or the article 5 of Tanisho. And what I've been doing this year is to travel around. I've been to Argentina. I'm going to Brazil next week. And I've been all over California, visiting different temples, and studying how ritual has changed in the Americas, in Jodo Shinshu communities. And obviously, central to Jodo Shinshu and to Jodo Shinshu ritual is the Nembutsu. So I've been engaging with the Nembutsu a lot, which from the perspective of my research is very interesting and sometimes puzzling, all the different ways in which people are saying Nembutsu, but personally it's been very, very significant, very meaningful too. And recently this quote by Shinran in Tanisho really caught my attention, because he's saying he's never said the Nembutsu for his deceased parents. And of course, I mean, I'm sure you all know in Jodo Shinshu we don't accumulate merit for the deceased, for those who passed. You don't even, though we do funerals, they're not for the person who has passed, but for the family. We know all these things. Sure. So from that point of view, it makes sense. He's just saying something very orthodox, very, very common sense in a Jodo Shinshu kind of way. Now, from what we know of Shinran Shonin and his life, this cannot be true. Why? Because, okay, so if you look at the life story of Shinran Shonin, and this is what struck me recently. He was an orphan. And the reason why he entered the monastery at Hiei-san, at Mount Hiei, at age 9, was because his parents had passed. So imagine this little kid as an orphan entering the monastery. And he's taught the Nembutsu, he's taught all the practices. I mean, we know that the Nembutsu was practiced at Mount Hiei. We know that it's very likely that he practiced it there from the letters of his wife, Eshini, that he was a priest in one of his halls where the Jogyo Zanmai was practiced, which is this very intense practice in which people walk around the statue of the Buddha for 90 days, reciting Nembutsu. And we know that in the Tendai Shu understanding, you could say the Nembutsu for your deceased parents. In fact, that was one of the main uses of the Nembutsu. It was a practice, it was a funerary practice, was for your deceased parents. So having known all of these about Shinran Shonin, how could it possibly be that he never said it for his deceased parents? Being an orphan, growing up in the monastery, being taught these practices. So, my question is, well, is he lying to us? But that's not really the question. The question is, what does he mean? Because surely, what he means is something different. He doesn't mean literally, I've never said it for my deceased father and mother. But that's literally what he's saying, but that cannot be true from what we know, right? So what does he mean? And I think that's the really interesting thing. And that obviously is an afterthought. So he surely said the Nembutsu in that way when he was younger. But this is Shinran at the end of his life. And he has realized something. I mean, by leaving Hyeizan, meeting Honen, and then going into exile, that very long and tumultuous life that he led, he's come to a different understanding of that Nembutsu he said in his teenage years. This is me speculating, but I think, you know, it's one way of making sense of that sentence. So he was saying the Nembutsu in his early age, and he comes to a new understanding. And I think the understanding is that all that Nembutsu he said for his deceased parents, it wasn't for his deceased parents. That's what he realizes later on. It was for himself. It was for himself alone. As he says again in Tani Sho at the end, right, in the postscript. The vow of Amida is for myself, Shinran, alone. It's for each of us alone. So I find this very, very important, because the Nembutsu is always for me, or for you, but I mean, it's always for the person who says it. Because it's not, if you think it is about something, you probably got it wrong. The Nembutsu is the constant call of the Buddha. It's not something we do, we know that, right? It's not something we do, we send out, but something we receive. And from that point of view, of course, all the Nembutsu he said for his deceased parents was for himself alone, was the Buddha calling him, was not him calling his parents or doing something for his parents. And I find this as a very unique quality of the Nembutsu. Again, my experience with the Nembutsu is never what you think it is about. Even if you think, oh, I'm saying it as an expression of gratitude. I'm saying grateful Nembutsu. Or I say it because I've got Shinji. You know that. You know that that kind of understanding is a bit funny. But even gratitude, I feel. You know, we talk a lot about gratitude. But what is, if you really think, oh, this is, I'm being grateful, I'm saying the Nembutsu, that's not what the Nembutsu is about. The Nembutsu is about receiving. Then gratitude is about. That's how I see it. That's how I experience it. The Nembutsu is what we receive that makes us feel grateful. It's the call to be grateful. And it's what makes us realize, in fact, how ungrateful we are. I sometimes talk about the ungrateful Nembutsu. Because when I say Nembutsu, I realize how ungrateful I am. I don't feel grateful most of the time, and yet I say the Nembutsu. And I think it's, this is very important because it's never what it seems to be about. And for Shinran, when he was saying it for his deceased parents, he thought, right, I'm saying this and I'm helping my parents. Later on, he realizes, no, it was for me. I was helping myself. Well, not I, but you know, it was about me. I was receiving. And this is what my research has shown me as well. I set out to write a book, and I hope to be able to publish it eventually and to get it together. But along the way, this became something else. This became about me listening to so many people and learning from so many people and hearing so much Nembutsu from different people, from different voices. And by Nembutsu, I don't just mean Nama Midabutsu, but the stories that people tell you. And it has been extremely enriching and extremely wonderful journey that turned out to be something else than what I first expected or first thought I wanted it to be. This, well, Tani Sho again, chapter 10, talks about Nembutsu as a Fukushigi, Fukasetsu, Fukusho. So whatever we think about it, whatever we attach to it, we're probably wrong, because Fukushigi is difficult to conceive, Fukasetsu difficult or impossible or beyond explanation, and Fukusho cannot be uttered. That's kind of contradictory, because we say Nembutsu, and the word they use is sho. right? Shomyo. But it says fukasho. Difficult to say, difficult to verbalize, right? So anyway, I wanted to share with you some of my stories as I've been traveling and attending all kinds of different events and different rituals. And so one particular one that was very intense and very interesting was in Argentina. I was there for 3 weeks, and there is a Nikkei community in Argentina. They're mostly from Okinawa, and they are, it was a much later migration, so the Nisei are like in the 50s, the Sansei are younger than me, so the Nisei very much still keep the language and keep the traditions. And I was there at a small community that is led by a Nisei minister. And he's Joro Shinshu, but he does this practice called the Hyakumanben Nembutsu. I don't know if some of you have heard of it. Hyakumanben means million Nembutsu. It's not a Joro Shinshu practice, but he's kind of independent in his approach, and he wants to recite the Nembutsu. He does it once a year for 2 weeks, constantly, right? He's playing taiko, and so I wanted to, I mean, this is very, very unique, so I went there, I wanted to write about it, and I also wanted to experience the whole thing. I mean, that's not necessarily my approach. I don't think we need to chant Nembutsu 2 weeks, 24 hours. But I thought it was interesting, and it could definitely make me understand what Shinran Shonin went through when he was doing this very intensive practice, 90 days walking around the statue and so on. Anyway, I set out, I joined, and I started practicing with them and playing taiko, which was very demanding, and chanting. I lost my voice on the second day. My health was deteriorating progressively, but I was really energetic. I really wanted to do it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this because I need to experience what it's like. And then halfway through, like around the end of week 1, my body gave up. I just couldn't take it any longer. It was too much. I was really pushing myself too hard. And so at that point, it completely shifted. What I thought I was doing was then upside down. So I was really focused on saying the Nembutsu and on playing the drums. But then I realized what it was all about was listening. And to be in a place where the Nembutsu is being uttered constantly is such a wonderful thing. Because you can constantly tune in. And you don't need to be chanting it, you don't need to be playing the taiko. I didn't necessarily even need to be in the room, in the hondo. I could be having a coffee next room, could still hear it. And that became really significant, because I felt really embraced by it. Because there was this place I could pop in at any point, in the middle of the night. I could leave, have a nap, go for a meal, have a beer, and come back and still will be there. And that was really wonderful. So I'm thankful for having had that context to really explore what it means to say and to listen to the Nembutsu. But the real practice became listening. And then it started, you know, I would have a nap in a room next door, still listening. Have breakfast, still listening. Go to the toilet, still there. So that became, and sometimes you're not listening, of course. Of course you gap out all the time, and that's fine. But it's somehow, you know, always present. And that became really, really interesting, really significant too. So, I mean, as I say, many of these experiences, field experiences, have become like that. They have tended to be something other than what I expected. And, I mean, Shinran talks about, I think I don't really hear people talking about these 4 points, but I find them very, very important. I think it's in one of the like little side notes that he wrote on scrolls. You know, some of the stuff, I mean, he wrote the Kyoyo Shinsho, the big work, and then letters and the wasan, but he also wrote like these little, you know, comments on the side of scrolls, Myogo scrolls, or the scrolls of the patriarchs. And some of them are really, really insightful, I find. And there's one in which he talks about Tariki, and you know, I mean, if you know Jiriki, Tariki, self-power, all the power, what I've just described is, yes, I'm going to do this. You know, I can do it. I want to do as much as I can, which is a very natural thing for me. That's my character, right? So I started with that approach, with a very jiricky approach, unconsciously, and then halfway through, something else happened. I was starting to receive rather than proactively seek that. And Shinran talks about Tariki in this way as 4 things to define it. And I think this is really, really important. One is the 4 things that Tariki is not. That's kind of the way he talks about it in a negative way. The first one is, if you think you're good, we know that, right? If you think, oh, I'm so good, you know, that's something not quite right there. I'll tell you a story about thinking that you're good. One of my driving stories. I've been driving a lot in the US, which has been probably a lot of fun. I first, in England, the speed limit is 70. So when I first went to the freeway, 65. Well, it's a bit slower, it's fine. Then I look around me and say, 65? Yeah, anyway, so I picked up somebody who had run out of petrol in the worst possible place. So there was this big sign, you know, like as you go out of California into Arizona, there's a big state prison, and there's a big sign that says, don't pick up hitchhikers, right? Because they come with people from the prison. And so next to the sign there's somebody with a big van. And of course I stopped. Because I mean, well, that's also part of my character. If you tell me don't do this, then I'll probably do it. So the way to manage me is to tell me reverse psychology, right? But anyway, I was curious because I mean, who would deliberately stop there? The car was there. So once you stop, I mean, I stop out of curiosity, but then once you stop, obviously, I guess you're going to take the guy. He had run out of petrol, his wife was there, he was just asking me for a ride to the petrol to the next gas station. So at that point I was not going to say, oh, well, okay, sorry, I'm just going to drive off. So I took him in, and we went, and so we started chatting anyway, so I just did it. But then I started thinking about it, and maybe that first thought was like, oh, I've done something really good. But then, the next thought is, well, that thought already is ego for sure, but the next thought was like, oh, this is great, that now, the universe owes me one. I hope one, when I'm stuck, when I have no gas, somebody picks me up because I've done this good thing. I deserve it now. I've created this marriage, right? And then I was like, this is, I know I don't believe in that consciously, but that's exactly what I was doing. And then the next thought was like, all about it. So all these layers of, I am good, right? It's very hard to shed that. The second one he talks about is to reflect. When he puts it in this way, it's the opposite, but he says like, I am bad. And this might come as a bit of a surprise, because Jodo Shinshu, we talk about a lot about akunin, and recognizing that we are not good, that we are evil. And yet, what he's saying is, if you deliberately think, oh, I am an evil person, I am so bad, that's not it either. And I think that's very interesting. I think we focus on that because our natural tendency is to think, I am good, like we all know, like I feel like that. So I need to challenge that by thinking I am not good. But also to meditate consciously, to think, oh, I'm such a horrible person. It's talking about self-pity, I think. When we fall into the cycle of, if you ever have felt like that, which I have, it's just like, oh, I'm terrible, or you feel guilty. I've done this horrible thing. And you cannot let it go. And you become stuck in that state. Yeah, it's just like, oh, I'm such a worthless, horrible person. That's not Tariki either. That's just another form of ego. It's another form of fixation. If you really think, oh, I'm such a horrible person, such a bad person, that's not it either. You're neither good nor bad. All of this is Hakkarai, calculation. The third one is I can become Buddha. I know I can make it happen. I'm going to make this thing happen. Doesn't depend on you alone. But that's the third kind of delusion, or the third calculation, Hakkarai, right? I can make this happen. But this applies to becoming Buddha, and you know why he's talking about that. I mean, he went through practice, he couldn't make it by himself. But this, I think, applies to many other things. If I think, oh, I can come to Buddhist Church of San Francisco and give a talk. No, I can't. You know, it's Kobara Sensei who invited me. There's all of you who are here. If you weren't here, I wouldn't be giving a talk. Simple as that. Anything we do depends on so many others. My very life depends on the lives of so many other beings. Even if you're vegetarian, even if you're vegan, your life still depends on many other lives. Plant life, and also the lives of insects that are killed by producing vegetables. Right? So, and the lives of the people, the farmers who grow the food, who manufacture the food, who do all these things. So, you can never do anything alone. That's another Jiriki calculation, right? Becoming Buddha is one of them. Becoming Buddha is no different from everything else. So if your very life depends on everybody else, whatever you do, whatever action you want to accomplish, depends on everybody else, so does you becoming a Buddha, right? And finally, and this is really hard, not judging others. Because again, if you think, oh, the moment you're judging others, you are thinking that you're good, right? But it's even something more profound. It's not just a moral injunction. It's like, oh, it's bad to judge others, to think, oh, they're not so good. No, it's just, how do you know? We don't know. We don't know ourselves first. It's very hard to know others. So I think this is the essence of Nembutsu. What Nembutsu is saying, you're not good. You're not bad either. You can't become a Buddha. And giving up on that aspiration, on that thought that I can make it happen, at that moment is when we can actually receive something else. We can actually be open to that call of the Buddha. And if you think you know others, you also have no idea. So really, you have no idea. I have no idea, I should say. And this, to me, this reminds me of the Shoshin in Japanese. They talk about beginner's mind. This is very important for the arts, for all kinds of disciplines. For martial arts, I practice a bit of martial arts. So the Shoshin, the beginner's mind. When you think you know something, when you're an expert, and for me that's very hard as a professor, because I have to be the guy who knows something, and who acts like I know something. But then you become closed. Then you're not listening, then you're not open, you're not open to receive. But if you have that beginner's mind, that's where it's at. Because then you want to learn, you're open, you're paying attention. And that's what Tariki no Shinji means, I think, and that's what the Nembutsu is all about. Hearing it with that fresh mind. And how do we do that? Well, we can't. But Shinran, again, in Tanisho, chapter 2, for me that's the very essence of Tanisho, but that's what speaks to me. He says, if you imagine any, that I have any, if I'm an expert in this, I have any special knowledge, you are wrong. All I do is follow the words, Honen, Tada Nembutsu shite. Tada Nembutsu shite. I think that's where it's at. Just say Nembutsu, just do Nembutsu literally. And Nembutsu shite, like to do Nembutsu, to say Nembutsu, it's easy. That's the igyo, that's the easy practice. The Tada is the really hard bit, the just, simply. How do you just say Nembutsu? That's very hard. Saying Nembutsu is easy. But to just do that with that open mind, with the Shoshin, with the beginner's mind, that's very, very hard. But just say it. That's what Shinran is saying. So anyway, I'd like to tell you a final story to conclude, because I think I can just carry on. I mean, I do this for a living. If you let me, I can just take your whole morning and afternoon, so please don't let me do that. But I'll tell you a story about my experience with Nembutsu as well, and how it didn't turn out to be what I thought it was about. So I chose Nembutsu because for me it's a wonderful practice, and it's, the fact that it's so simple makes it very profound. I mean, I did Tibetan Buddhist practice for many years. I went into retreats. I did a lot of silent meditation and many rituals and so on. But at one point I realized, well, at first I realized I'm not getting any more enlightened than I am, which is not a lot. And then I realized this is very hard. I mean, if I want to have a career, if I want to do many of the things with my life, I can't carry on. So on one hand, I found myself, I cannot give up Buddhism, it's too close to my heart. On the other hand, I cannot carry on doing this. So that's where I found Nembutsu, and Nembutsu found me, which is this is a practice you can do anywhere, regardless of time and circumstance. And this is a wonderful thing. It's portable, it goes with you. And it's incredibly deep if you look into it, if you really engage with it. It has so much depth. You don't need to go into a retreat, you don't need to have money, you don't even need to go to a temple. Well, obviously it helps, but it's something that is always with you. And so I realized I work with computers because I work for an online university, so all my teaching is online. And that doesn't mean I'm good with them. So often when they go into update mode, you know what I'm talking about, that's just so frustrating. And I lose it. Because I don't know, it's just completely escapes my control. And technology gives you this illusion that you are in control, because you press the key and something happens. And you know, 90% of the time that's the case. So it creates this illusion of control, like, oh, yeah, great, this is how it works. Wonderful, I can make this happen. But then, like, I have to teach in 5 minutes, it goes into updates, sometimes it takes 2 hours, I'm going to miss the lecture. And I totally panic. And so I started saying Nembutsu. And I realized I did this. I mean, this was not a deliberate thing, but that's just what happened all the time. And I noticed it. And I got a bit suspicious. I was like, why am I doing this? I don't believe, and I know that, right? I mean, and it's not consciously that by reciting Nembutsu, the computer is going to work. I'm going to make it happen, right? This is, again, I can become Buddha, or I can make a computer work. It's the same kind of mentality. It's like, I know that, so what is this about? Why does it keep on coming? Why do I keep on saying it while I'm in this situation? And then I realized, well, this is when I'm getting really stressed. And there's something to the Nembutsu immersion at that point. It's a reminder, right? It's reminding me to look at myself and go a little deeper. It's really showing me, it's bringing attention to the fact that I am not in control. You know, what is really happening here? You're not in control and you're panicking. That's what the Nembutsu is telling me. So it's not I'm saying Nembutsu to make a computer work. Nembutsu is coming to me. I'm receiving it as a message. Look at yourself, look at what's happening. You have no idea, and you're not in control. Thank you so much for bearing with me. Please join me in Gasho. I, Shinran, have never yet said the Nembutsu, even once, for the repose of my departed father and mother. Shinran wa Buddha no kyoyo no tame tote, ippen nitte no Nembutsu mo shitaru koto imada sorowasu. Namo Amida. Namo Amida.